We'll see a recap that what we covered yesterday, and then we'll just continue with the next plan. So along previously whatever we discussed on Visualforce pages, every time we use a Apex controller. But apart from the Apex controller, we can use a controller called a standard controller. The standard controller is nothing but any of the S object. It could be a standard object or a custom object. And we can write a Visualforce page by using that method. But the thing was, you will not be having any variables. You cannot, why? Because you're not having Apex class, right? So you will not have any variables that you can use in your Visualforce page. Only you can use is the whatever the S object that you're using as a controller. Um, that object as a API name you will be using as a standard controller, and using that API name only you're going to refer the fields in the records. And standard controller can deal only with a single record, and on a single record you can perform multiple actions or you can navigate. Okay, let's say what disadvantage and why we need to use a standard controller. Why? Because without using Apex class, you can have some controller to your VF page, and you can access some of the standard actions that are available on the same object. Let's say if you're having a new view, edit, delete, clone options, all these options. Okay, sorry. The actions are this: save, quick save, edit, delete, cancel, list. All these quick actions, all these standard actions that are on that object, you can access from this standard controller. And whatever the fields that you're going to display, those will be respect all your field level security and record level security. Everything will be respected in a standard controller, whereas in your custom controller, if you're using a with sharing, it will only respect the record level security, not the object and a field level security. Whereas in standard controller, it will respect all the user permissions and sharings of the user. That is one thing, and we can deal only with one record. And on top of it, let's say if you have some so you'll be having all this new view and edit buttons, right? When you look at the um, like standard page, like let's say if you have account or a project, so when you open when you open a record, what will happen? So if you click on a record, so it will open up one page, right? That's called a record detail page. So we'll be having some standard page, but you don't like that page and you want to build your own page for the record. So how we can build that page? So we had seen, right, when we are discussing on admin side, we can build this page our own way and we can use it as a record page, one thing. And in classic, so before lightning, so in the classic, if you want to have our own page there, so you can build one VF page and that VF page can be used as a record detail page. That means overriding a record detail page. And similarly, when you edit a record, whatever the page you are getting, this page also we can override, not in lightning, and it, like before lightning, I would say. So you can have your Visualforce page that you can that you can use as a edit form. Or on top of it, if you want to include any of the Visualforce pages in your detail page or edit page also, you can do like this. You can build some page and you can include, the page has to have a standard controller, and then only the pages are available to add in a record detail page or a record edit page. So that is one advantages We can override the standard buttons, or we can include the pages in a record edit or a record detail pages also. You can add the Visualforce pages by using a standard controller. If I use standard controller as account, I can only add that Visualforce page in a account detail page. If I use a standard controller as a project, I can use the Visualforce page in a standard record page only. I can add. Okay, so that's how we can do by using a standard controller. So any questions we have here? And along with that, usually when we having some input fields or output fields, we used to use some hard coded labels, right? So apart from that, if you want to use the exact the field label only, if I want to use in my Visualforce page, you can use this kind of a schema. Dollar as a object type, and object API name, then fields, what are the field you want to use, and the label of it. So that what will happen was, whatever the label that is having your field, let's say tomorrow you're changing your field label, then the value that is you used is in a Visualforce page will also get changed. So it's not a hardcode value, and you are referring from a label of the field itself. So that's what its syntax was. And I was discussing all the tags, if we are covered or not covered. Just I was placing all tags in one place that we can use for a Visualforce page. All input tags, how to use the input tags, input field, file, hidden, secret, input text, text area. If it is output, what are all the tags available for the output? It could be a field, or it could be a label, link, panel, or a text. I have a just short description and how to use the tags I have explained in those videos. You can refer, and how we can declare the variables, and what actually declaring a variable, and what actually selects everything. I explained our each tag, whether we used it or not used it. I feel apart from all of this action tags are really important, really useful, more useful compared to other tags. So we might have seen a button. So link also exactly similar to it. So nothing changed, but the UI, instead of a button, it will looks like a link. That is only the difference. Coming to action polar, this one is you like usually when we call Apex method from a Visualforce page, if you click on a button or a link, right? But if you having some scenario where you want to you want to call the Apex method in the regular intervals. So when you switch on it, so it will keep on calling the Apex method in a regular interval. Let's say if you say 2 minutes, for every 2 minutes, it will call Apex and refresh the page. And if you switch off, then it will be off. So that is called a action polar. So here the default interval is a 60 seconds, and the number that you're going to provide is nothing but a seconds, and the minimum that you can give is a 5 seconds that you can give for action polar, and you can increase to the any time that you have. Now action support, I think sometime back also we discussed. So what are all the tags that all not having action tag? This action support will give a additional capability to call the Apex method, and with all event types, Ajax events like click, double click, on change, on mouse over, on mouse in, all the events that can be used to call the Apex method. Action function. So this will, let's say if you're having any JavaScript, and from Java in your Visualforce page, and from JavaScript, if you want to call the Apex method, that you can, then you can expose any of the Apex method with a JavaScript name, so that the name of the action function will be treated as a JavaScript method. So you can call either from the tags or from a JavaScript also, you can call that method. So basically, if you want to call an Apex method from a JavaScript, in a Visualforce page, then you'll use a action function. And the last one is the action region. So actually it is not so if you see everything over here, everything is dealing to calling an apex method, whereas action region, it will not call an apex, but it will control the what the things that will be carried from a that will be carried from your Visualforce page to a apex method during the apex call. Let's say if you have some action function sorry, action support or action command button or command link on a click, what will happen was whatever the form that you're having, all the values will be carried to your apex class. But you don't want to do that. You want to restrict what part of the page is going to take to a apex response. You will enter the action region start and stop tags in between. Whatever the action tags you're having, that action tag only limit to that action region block only. Whatever the action methods or action calls that you're having within the action region, it will only respond you to the that particular part of the Visualforce page only. So that what your call will be more responsive or faster than the usual call. Why? Because if you don't use action region, you're bringing the whole page to it, so that it will be a heavy to the load to the server. So action region, it will limit the what is the data that you're bringing to a Apex server or Apex classes. And all these tags are we have used in most of the pages. And here, if you have something a different UIs, we have a tab UIs, toolbar UIs, panel bar UIs, panel grid, how the UI looks and how to use the tags I have explained. So it's nothing like a normal tags, how we have a page blocks. Similarly, you can have, if you want to have some kind of a tab like a UI, then you can use a tab panel and tab. And if you want to have a bar like a UI, then you can use, if you want something like accordion kind of UI, then you can go for a panel bar and panel bar item. And something new is a detail one. So this is like we having a standard record page, right? If you want to display the standard record page inside a Visualforce page, then you can use a Apex detail tag, where we need to just provide the subject tag with the record ID. Then only it will display the all record for you, where you have option to turn off or turn on the chatter feed, related list. What else we have? You can have some parameters available to control whether you want to on or off. You can do, and these are also already we discussed most of them. So that's all for the development, all we having. And yeah, any questions we have, you can ask.